Penguin Random House Audio presents The Tunnels of Cu Chi, a harrowing account of America's tunnel rats in the underground battlefields of Vietnam, by Tom Mangold and John Penycate. Read for you by Jeff Harding.
The Mother, the Native Land. When she dug the tunnels, her hair was still brown. Today, her head is white as snow. Under the reach of the guns, she digs and digs. At night, the cries of the partridge record the past. 20 years, always the land is at war. The partridge in the night cries out the love of the native land. The mother, she digs her galleries, defenses, protecting each step of her children. Immeasurable is our native land. The enemy must drive his probes in everywhere. Your unfathomable entrails, mother, hide whole divisions under this land. The dark tunnels make their own light. The Yankees have captured her. Under the vengeful blows, she says not a word. They open their eyes wide, but are blind. Cruelly beaten, the mother collapses. Her body is no more than injuries and wounds. Her white hair is like snow. Night after night, the noise of picks shakes the bosom of the earth. Columns, divisions rise up from it. The enemy, seized by panic, sees only hostile positions around him. Immeasurable is our native land. Your entrails, mother, are unfathomable. Duong Hong Lee. Forward. In 1968, one of the authors covered the war in Vietnam for 3 months for BBC television news. 10 years later, we were, together, the first BBC journalists to be granted visas by the newly victorious communist government of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam to visit Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, formerly Saigon, to film a special report for Panorama. It was on this visit that we were introduced to Captain Nguyen Thanh Linh, who had commanded the guerrillas of Cu Chi district in the tunnels. At the former military headquarters at Phu My Hung, our first introduction to the tunnels and some of the men who fought in them took place. Subsequently, we were given permission to return to Vietnam, not as journalists but as authors, to study the tunnels and the tunnel war in greater detail. The Foreign Ministry in Hanoi not only cleared us to visit the tunnels of Cu Chi whenever we wished, but gave us unusual access to senior commanders in the People's Army, who had formerly served with the Communist forces in South Vietnam. We were invited for several briefings at the headquarters of Military Region 7 in Ho Chi Minh City, which covers Cu Chi district. We met officers who had never spoken to Western visitors before, and we were allowed unlimited time with Colonel Nguyen Quang Minh, formerly a staff officer in the People's Liberation Army, as all communist forces fighting in the South were called, and today the chief military historian of Military Region 7. The official communist history of the war is still in preparation. At further briefings in Cu Chi Town, Song Bay, Tai Ninh, and other regional headquarters, People's Army officers quoted at length from a still-secret account of the war called Summary Report on Experiences in the Anti-U.S. Struggle for National Salvation on the Battlefield in eastern South Vietnam and the southern part of central Vietnam, Zone B2. Original maps of the tunnel system and drawings and diagrams of the construction processes were also supplied in Ho Chi Minh City by Military Region 7. In the villages and hamlets of Cu Chi and adjoining districts, we met numerous former tunnel fighters, some still in uniform, many now back on the land as farmers. Other important civilians we interviewed were located and brought to meet us in Ho Chi Minh City. We met the city's party chairman, Mai Chi To, brother of Lê Duc To, who signed the ceasefire agreement with the United States for North Vietnam. Mai Chi To was responsible for the political direction of the war in the Saigon area and reported personally to the communist headquarters in South Vietnam. All the interviews were made on the basis of full attribution. Each was tape recorded and later translated and transcribed in London. Surprisingly, there were greater difficulties in locating the relevant American veterans. The character of those who fought in tunnels precludes clubbiness or fondness for joining veterans associations. Many of these lonely men found life after service discharge an anticlimax. Restless by nature, many had changed jobs, leaving little trace. Few stayed in touch with their former comrades. Of the GI tunnel fighters who survived, probably one of the most exclusive ex-servicemen's groups in the world, only a few dozen could be found after extensive inquiries, and of these, a small number were still too traumatized by their experiences to tell their stories for publication. Most, however, agreed to meet us and discuss for the first time since Vietnam their combat experiences in the tunnels. This is a story about heroes on both sides. Forward to the 2005 edition. Much has changed in Vietnam in the 20 years since this book was first published. The nation, while remaining a nominal socialist state, has turned increasingly to the west. Tourism has become a major industry, and the tunnels around Cu Chi are now one of Ho Chi Minh City's major attractions. The old earth infrastructure with fire ant nests inside, which we were amongst the first to explore as visitors, has long given way to secure, concrete-lined exhibition sites for even the plumpest of visitors. International chain hotels have replaced the old French-built models, and the fleet of pink Cadillacs, a feature of Saigon Center that was hired for wedding processions, has vanished. The city has found a new vibrancy. The countryside has renewed itself with time and the timeless labors of the traditional Vietnamese peasantry. The fertile red earth remains the nation's mother. The war came and went, thousands died, and thousands of lives were ruined. But Vietnam revived, and the Far East did not fall to Soviet or Chinese communism as predicted. Numerous pilgrimages by aging American Vietnam vets to this beautiful land testified to the resonance of their time in country 40 years ago, and to a war whose scars and memories just won't quite fade away. Chapter 1. War Underground. He heard the tracks of the armored personnel carriers long before the malignant clouds of dust came into view. Nam Tuan lay very still, trying to count the number, but in his eyes and ears was only the fusion of squeaky steel belts and the approaching halo of dirt as the American armor moved busily out of the early morning sun and straight toward him. As Communist Party secretary of Phu Mi Hung village and its 6 small hamlets, Nam Tuan was automatically political commissar of the village defense force, a small unit already much depleted by action and promotions to the regional fighting forces. His small platoon that morning comprised a good deputy commander and a couple of village farm boys. His orders had been simple enough. He was to delay any American thrust on Phu Mi Hung by luring the enemy into engagement. He would destroy them if possible. If not, his diversionary battle would allow ample time for the village to be evacuated and the arms and guerrillas to be hidden. It was August 1968. The war against the Americans was 3 years old. The Great Tet Offensive seemed to have taken many lives. Yet South Vietnam had still not been reunited with the North. If anything, Tuan thought, the Americans seemed more confident and more powerful than ever. But at least they were predictable. It was a necessary consolation as the small armored column rattled nearer. The Americans always came when expected, came noisily, and came in strength. He counted 13 M113 carriers. It was a larger force than he had expected. Tuan needed to move quickly if he was to draw the column toward him and toward the tunnels. To fight with, he had just 2 remote-controlled mines which he would detonate and a box full of captured American M26 grenades. In the confusion, he would retreat and escape down the tunnel, but not so quickly that the Americans would not see him. Things went wrong from the beginning. He detonated the first DH-10 mine prematurely, and it exploded harmlessly just ahead of the lead American APC. The second mine failed to go off. The column was still too far away.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?